Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Great Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Well, I've done my namaste for the day, and here it is, Monday. Happy Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, everybody. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a great leader, and he was a great spiritual leader, and he was a great political leader, and we want to honor him today as much as possible. So, what is the topic of today's video? Well, it's sort of an eclectic thing. As you can see, I've got a jacket on. It's very cold. It's very cold in my apartment. And it's so cold, in fact, that I have to wear a jacket all the time around here now. Because it's just that cold that I have to wear a jacket. And that's the only way I can stand to be up and about and doing things and getting work done is to wear a jacket. So I'm wearing a jacket. And the topic of today's video is when the going gets tough. And why did I pick when the going gets tough? Well, things are getting tough for me now, okay? Now things are getting rough, okay? I have 4 brand new classes. One of them hasn't started yet, okay? For some reason, the professor delayed it, and it hasn't started yet. But the other 3 classes have started, and there's one class that's taking up 95% of my time. As you know, there's always one class like that. There's always one class that takes up 95% of your time. And that one class is English composition. And the teacher is just awful. She gave us 100 pages to read over the weekend. 100 pages. So we had 4 days to do it, okay? But she gave us 100 pages to read. And plus, she wants us to listen to a podcast. Plus, she wants us to visit a website and peruse the website. So she gave us a ton of work. Plus, we had to write a one-page summary of one of the things we read. And for those of you who know what it's like to go to college and be given a ton of homework, now you know. When you go to college, certain professors think that they're being tough on you, and they think they're being rough on you, and they think they're doing you some good by being rough. And so they give you a ton of work. They give you a ton of work to do, more than you could ever possibly handle. And so this is what this professor has done to me. I don't have time for any of my other classes. I don't have time for anything else. I'm focused on this one professor and trying to get a good grade in her class. I doubt I'm going to get a good grade. She's a very tough grader, and from what I've heard from the other students, they've gotten C's and D's in her class, and she's a very tough grader. So I'm hoping to get a B. I'm hoping to get a B or the equivalent of a B. If I can get a 3.0 in her class, I'll be satisfied. So this professor is really tough, and what is required when a professor is really tough? Well, you have to get going. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, and I have to really work hard, and I have to really apply myself. Now, this is very difficult for me because, as I told you before, I'm hearing voices again. And it's very difficult to concentrate, very difficult. I mean, she should pin a badge on my chest for the effort I'm putting forth, because with the voices, it's very difficult. Now, there's one good thing. the way the brain works, the way my brain works, the way everyone's brain works, is that if you're focused on something and you're concentrating on something, the voices get less. They get quieter, and they even go away for a while. So that's a good thing. So I'm actually, once I buckle down and actually start working, I'm actually able to concentrate and do my work like a normal person. So, but it is difficult. It is difficult to motivate myself to even get started with the things I'm hearing. I'm hearing gang rape and brain rape and all sorts of horrible things, and it's awful living with this disease. It's awful. I can't even begin to describe how bad it is. And this voice pretends it's in love with me and is always saying sexual things to me, and it's just and threatening me, and it's just awful. It is the most awful thing, and obviously it had something to do with my father. He must have said these things to me, or else played a recording of these things for me to listen to. And I suspect it's the latter, because it doesn't sound like him. First of all, the voice doesn't sound like him, and second of all, he's not that creative. So I think he played a recording for me. And where he got this recording from, I have no proof. I don't know where it came from, but I think it came from the government. I think the government was somehow involved in my future disease. It was some sort of a grand science experiment that they were pulling to see what the effect of sexual abuse and prolonged ritual abuse and torture would be on a child, if they could create a monster or create a super soldier or something. I don't know what they were trying to do. But they thought that they could control my mind, and they couldn't control my mind. I was too brilliant for that, and reported him eventually. Even though I was terrified to death of him, I reported him, and he escaped. But then, later on, he sent private investigators after me and tortured me for years with private investigators that threatened me, tried to get me arrested in public, all sorts of things. So there were some bad things that happened, okay? Some really bad things happened to me, and these recordings are still in my head. I don't know how they embedded them in my head, but apparently, if you're abused young enough, if you're abused like when you're 3 or 4 years old and sexually abused, they can drill anything into your head they like while you're being abused. And it all goes into your subconscious mind, and then it comes out later when you're an adult. So, that happened to me. That happened to me, and I know you don't like hearing bad things about your government. You want to think that people are imagining things, or that they're making things up, but it's not. It's not made up. It's really real. And so, this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, just think about justice, gender justice and political justice, and all sorts of different kinds of justice for sexual abuse survivors, especially. The whole deal with Jeffrey Epstein, I can well believe that both Clinton and Trump were involved with his girls, and also that they sexually abused minors. I can believe it. I can believe that Trump and Clinton were guilty of that, because they've done things like that before. They were both accused of sexual advances toward younger women. And Trump even made a comment about Jeffrey Epstein. He says he loves beautiful women. He likes them on the younger side. So there, Trump admitted it. And so it's not about a political party. It's not left versus right. It's obvious that there's some people who have low morals in our society, and it doesn't matter what party they're from. None of the parties care about sexual abuse or sexual abuse survivors, even though it's a huge problem in our society. They're not very concerned. And in fact, the government has been doing these things to the victims. And I use the word victims because people don't want to think of themselves as victims, and they like to deny it. They're victim deniers. That's what I call them, victim deniers. They're in denial, and they like to deny the truth that they're victims, and they think the victim is so negative that they can't use the word ever in any context. And so victims are the ones blamed. They're the ones that bear the blame for thinking of themselves as victims or behaving the way they imagine victims behave. They're blamed for what their abusers have done. So, I went off on a tangent. I've been working hard despite my disability, despite my problem, and trying to get the work done. I really should ask for help, but from somebody. But like my psychiatrist, I should ask for help. But I'm afraid of being locked up at this point because I have to get the work done. I have to do these classes, and I can't afford to be taking a hiatus at the hospital right now. And I wouldn't even want to. Honestly, at this point, I really wouldn't want to be at the hospital. That's not how I want to be spending my time. I'd rather be spending my time working on the homework. So I'm gonna try to. I see my psychiatrist soon, which is good. I see my psychiatrist soon, and when I see my psychiatrist, I'm gonna bring up this issue of the voices with him. It was my own fault that I heard the voices. For a long time I've been taking a lower dose of medication, and I didn't want to take too much because it's a dangerous medication. It can cause heart arrhythmias and cardiac arrest. So I don't want to take too much, but I've been taking less, and now it's not helping anymore. It still helps if I take enough. It still helps if I take enough, but I haven't been taking enough. So I've increased my dose back to what my doctor wanted it to be. I increased my dose back to what my doctor wanted it to be in the first place, and it's beginning to help again. But for over a year, I was able to get by on the lower dose without any problems. But now I need the higher dose. So I'm just hanging in there. Have to be tougher, have to be stronger, and have to try harder to do everything because of this problem. And it makes everything more difficult. Makes me want to goof off or just do housework or do something else other than my homework, anything other than my homework, because the voices make it so difficult. But and it's only one voice. It's one voice that I hear all the time. I have heard multiple voices in the past, but right now it's just one voice. And I just say voices because people understand what voices are. That's what they call it, voices. But it's really one voice. So the voice has been bugging me and saying all the same things it always says, especially gang rape. I mean, it says gang rape every 5 seconds. And it's just awful. It's an awful disease to live with, especially if you've been abused and and had these thoughts drilled into your head by someone or something. And so, and it's usually a someone. That's who usually is the guilty party in this scenario. So, you know, you don't want to hear these voices years later, but there's nothing you can do about it. If you're in a similar situation, just do your best. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Just tell yourself that and get going. Start work. Start doing your homework. Start working hard. Work hard every day. And you just might get somewhere. I'm Sarah Jane Alpha Wolf signing off. Have a terrific week. Don't let your problems get you down. Whatever your problem may be. Everyone's got a different problem. Some have bad boyfriends. Some have bad life situation. And just don't let it get you down. Just keep on plugging. Keep on plugging. And work hard. That's the main takeaway from this video.